You might be offering your vibration because you're remembering something someone said to you. You might be offering your vibration because of something you're thinking about saying or because of something you're doing. It could be something you're observing in your present or remembering from your past or imagining in your future, but something that you're focused on right now has got you activating a vibration. And now your guidance system is responding to this always active vibration, which you are continually amending, but which is backed up with the energy of source, with the energy that creates worlds. In other words, who you really are is pulsing powerfully within you, whether you are conscious of it or not. And what you are thinking about right now is pulsing powerfully within you, whether you are conscious of it or not. So what we are suggesting is, since all of this vibrational stuff is happening, there is an emotional response that's giving you the reading of that. And the closer your right now in the moment thoughts are to who you really are and what you really want, then the better you feel. And the further those thoughts are vibrationally, then the worse you feel. So when you begin saying, I care how I feel because how I feel is my indication of my alignment, of my energy balance, of my allowing. There's allowing and resisting. Allowing and resisting of what? Of the source who is in agreement with all that I have personally concluded as I've moved through the contrast that I prefer or desire to live in this physical life experience. It really doesn't matter what thoughts you've been thinking or even what thoughts you might think today. The thing that really matters is your awareness of your emotional guidance system and your awareness of, if I'm walking toward, through my conversation, through my contemplation, through my musing, if I'm walking toward vibrationally something that matches who I am, then every step in that direction feels like an improvement. In other words, every step you take toward vibrational alignment with who you are feels like the release of resistance. So it's relief, 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 or better and better and better and better feeling.
So in those moments when you are in alignment and you're feeling good, is there all those things like the problem I just mentioned I have, are they being corrected?
They are.
That 99.99% being done without manifesting.
That's what we were saying yesterday when we were talking about Jerry and Esther traveling from Phoenix to San Diego. And the majority of that 400 miles, they're not in San Diego where they want to be. But they are happily moving in the direction of that, knowing that the manifestation will be there. And we want you to think in terms that when you are happily moving along, you are moving in the direction of what you are wanting, and the manifestation will be there. But here's the thing that we really want you to hear, and this is the making peace with where I am part. If you are happily moving along to where you are, then you're not at the same time noticing that you're not where you want to be. What I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. What I'm thinking and therefore what I'm feeling in response to what I'm thinking, and what manifests is always a vibrational match. But once it manifests, then it's more difficult to clean your vibration up about it, because now you've got the sinus draining that's hard to get your attention off of. So it's much easier to guide your vibration before it manifests, but it does not matter if it manifests. You could have every deadly disease known to man in your body right now, and we could promise you that if you could guide your thoughts toward better and better feeling things, you would move away from the resistance, which is the disallowing factor of the wellness.
So we don't have to identify any thought that triggered the illness, whatever it is.
You don't have to get back to the basis of it, but what will begin to happen as you decide to be consciously aware of the way you feel, and as it matters to you that you feel good, and you begin to contour your thoughts one at a time, what begins to happen is the not good feeling thoughts become less and less pleasant and more acknowledged, and you become less and less tolerant of them. You're not as picky as we want you to be. We want you to care that you feel good and to guide your thoughts in order to feel good, where the tendency is to want to change the conditions so that I can feel good, and you can't do that. There are too many conditions that keep moving around on you.
So there is a cure-all, and that's just feeling good all the time.
That is the fountain of youth. It is the river of wellness. It is the stream of abundance. It is the way to all things that are important to you. It's feeling good. And so when you realize that you have control of the way you feel and you start exercising it. Now, we would encourage all of you, start with easy things. Don't take the thing that's been plaguing you most and decide that that will be the thing you clean your vibration up about. But decide that you want to feel good, and then be aware of how you are feeling. So you are on the brink of manifestation of many things wanted and maybe many things not wanted. And you can tell by the way you feel in this moment which of those you are walking toward. So every ornery moment is a moment closer to a manifestation that did not just come out of the blue. You've been working hard at it. Every emotional step along the way is a step closer to some of these manifestations. So your inner being is always calling you toward the things that it knows you want and that it knows you will like when you get there, you see. So Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss. And we think that there were no better words that were ever spoken by a human tongue. If you were following your bliss, you would be following the trail to vibrational alignment. You would be in vibrational alignment with all of the things that you have added to the clear being that you are. In other words, you would be tuned in, tapped in, turned on. You would be thriving in all ways. But we notice that sometimes you can't get a whiff of bliss, especially when your sinuses are clogged up. In other words, sometimes if you are frustrated or in despair or something is happening, you don't have vibrational access to those wonderful thoughts. And that is the thing that we think is sort of stuck in the craw of so many, because when we say you create your own reality and the way you feel is your indication of how you're doing, and you're dealing with some situation that is clearly not in alignment with what you want, it's normal that when you are looking right at something that is clearly not what you want, that you're going to have negative emotion. We do not want to give you the impression that we want you to rid yourself of negative emotion. We would not ask of that any more than we would say lose the sensitivity in your fingertips.
I understand that.
We want you to be aware of negative emotion, and we want you to bless negative emotion. We want you to appreciate negative emotion for the guidance that it gives you. And so let's get around to this making peace with where you are. As you are living something less than what you want, and you are clear that you would like it to be different than it is, and you're mad at yourself that it isn't different than it is, that self-directed anger, does it feel good or bad?
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good. And so when you find yourself there, say to yourself, I'm going to do my best now in my awareness of this emotion to find the best feeling thought I have access to. Not the best feeling thought I've ever thought, and not the best feeling thought anybody has ever thought. I'm not trying to mimic my bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Abraham friend. I wish that person would go away, frankly.
Just to do the best I'm just going to
do the best I can right now. And when you are in fear or even despair, and you reach into that breath of fresh air that revenge will give you, and you acknowledge that this revenge does feel better than that fear or despair that I was feeling before, the key to this deliberate reaching for a thought that you have access to is to stop and say, I have deliberately chosen this improvement, and I do feel better. And this is where the emotional journey comes in. We want you to care right along while you're suffering with your sinuses. We want you to care about what your emotional response is to it. And we want you to take your attention away from the physical discomfort if you can, and put more of your attention upon the improvement of which you have utter control. And what you'll notice is when you make yourself feel better, say to your friends, I'm really, really angry, and if you don't like it, then stay clear of me, but I feel so much better than where I was. I'm going to beat this drum for a while because I want to be sure that I'm stable here so that I can move on to the next. And when you show yourself that you can do that, then you will feel a relaxing come over you, because you will realize that you truly can go anywhere that you want.
Do we add, in addition to reaching for the better thought, does it help to sort of pull yourself into that new reality without the sinus problem by imagining or shooting a rocket of desire that I want clear and free sinuses and focus on that? Will that help pull you to it?
Well, it would. Now, if you were in frustration and you were then just wanting to fan the flames of your desire. So you imagine what it will be like. You possibly could make that jump. It depends upon how you feel. In other words, it's a good recommendation to reach as far up the emotional scale as you can, understanding that if you don't reach that far, you can just start where you are.
And not get frustrated about not getting there
But
fast.
that's precisely what we were about to say. What we've noticed with so many of you is if you try to reach further than you can and you fall in the crevasse, then you just get more irritated, and usually you don't, in that moment at least, do much good work about moving out. But eventually what happens is you watch for every opportunity. In other words, you could be bogged down in traffic and frustrated about that every day, and that could be the basis of your sinus situation. In other words,
It's funny you say that. I don't like traffic.
You could be irritated with the atmosphere. You could be irritated with the smog. In other words, those kinds of thoughts over a steady basis where you beat the drum of it so that 99% of that was in place. And then one day out of the blue, here come the sun. And then once they've come, then you don't usually do anything to clean up the vibration about it. And so then it just self-perpetuates because now you're looking at what is. And so you're offering even more of a vibration about what is.
Things that show up on us physically. Our physical bodies, we create. Someone who manifests something on their body, and I'll use the extreme, a mole with hair growing on it out of your forehead. I know a person didn't think, God, I'm so scared I'm going to get a mole with hair on it out of my forehead. So how does something like that manifest?
Usually the vibrational set point on the emotional scale that causes that is an attitude of self-awareness, self-criticism, self-consciousness. I want to look good. I fear that I don't. I want to look good. You're looking at me and I can tell that you don't think that I do look good. In other words, it's usually a soft vibration. In other words, let's talk about these, because the different set points. So what do you think, from what you know of the emotions that you feel, what do you think would be a logical equivalent in terms of physical disallowance of well-being? Now let's start this in the right way. Well-being is flowing, and unless you're doing that thing that you do that doesn't allow it to flow, you will be thriving in this attitude of well-being, which means you'll be vital and alive, you'll be good feeling, you'll be flexible, you'll feel good. Because all of you are wanting that well-being. In other words, that is a given. We'll talk about that a little bit, about those who come forth that are born differently. That's a different thing altogether. But when you come forth and your body is the way you have intended it to be, and then it begins migrating toward unwanted things, it is because of a sustained vibrational pattern that you're offering. So what do you think would be a vibrational equivalent in terms of diagnosis to overwhelmment and frustration? Things like headaches, things like physical discomfort, muscle aches, maybe even cramping in your feet, that sort of thing. Things that can rather easily be resolved because there's not much tension in that. So then what do you think would be a vibrational equivalent to something that is like despair or fear?
Something a little more chronic.
Something much more serious. Something that replicates your feeling of powerlessness.
Something bad like cancer,
exactly.
Heart disease,
something
or something
that where they would say to you, we have very little control over this, because it replicates your feeling of lack of control.
That you have no power in your life.
So where do you think strokes and heart attacks would fall? Rage, anger, in other words, for the most part. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this, and the reason that it is really not accurate for us to try to nail any disease to any exact emotion is because everyone has different emotional set points relative to different things in their life. But if there is something in your life that is really, really bothering you, meaning that you have come into this environment of deciphering contrast in order to give birth to desires. But we notice that in that deciphering process, the first thing that you usually do is identify what is wrong. And there's a tendency to get too hung up for too long on what is wrong and not fast enough turning your attention to the desire that is born out of your awareness of what is wrong. And so when you beat the drum of something that's bothering you, you tend to work a little groove into that set point. And so in time, you just, without meaning to, we call it not having vibrational awareness. But we don't want to call it unconscious because the guidance is always there. So we want to call it ignoring the way I feel because someone outside of me has said that I'm not supposed to feel good. Somebody outside of me has said it's better for me to do what they say I should do than to do what I want to do or what would feel good to me to do it.